What is going on, Call of Duty fans? I'm IHOLDSHIFT. Welcome back. We need to wrap up the Pro League Qualifier pools. We did A, B, and C. Missed those. You're going to want to go back and check them out because there's a lot of things. And we're going to finish things off with Pool D. Now, this pool, I have to admit, is freaking crazy. It's by far the weakest pool out there. I don't know how you could say otherwise. The fact that two of these teams are going to get into the Pro League is actually kind of a gift, considering where they kind of, at least in my book, fit on what would be the overall power rankings. So that's interesting to see, as this, again, it was all based off of Vegas seedings. They were split into different little pools, threw those out, and that's how they got placed, depending on where they were. But this is by far the weakest pool, without a doubt in my mind. Like, and I think on my power rankings, the highest team here I have sitting at like the 11th spot overall. So the fact that there are teams that are like not great at all in this pool is absolutely insane. But let's take a look at it. We've got pool A, B, C, and now we're taking a look at D. Again, if you missed those earlier ones, you're gonna want to go back and check them out. They were good videos, at least I think they were. But here in pool D, we've got Evil Geniuses, Red Reserve, UYU, the Australians and Mind Freak, the European team of the Imperial, Spanish squad of Movie Star Riders, and then another North American team, Nation of Power. Now, again, this group is all over the place. In flat out, Evil Geniuses, yes, they came out hot. That squad made up of Gunjar, Royalty, Fellow, Saints, Exotic at Vegas. Saints would leave. He'd be picked up by the Pittsburgh Knights. Facento would come over from D2, so that roster is as it looks there. They would finish top 8 at CWL Vegas, and it was a really good Friday from this team in a pool where not a lot of expectations were favoring them whatsoever. Pool B had Luminosity in it, Red Reserve in it. Everyone thought that Evil Geniuses would be sitting somewhere between the 3 and the 4 spot. They would actually have a flawless Friday before they would eventually to the Heretics out of the open bracket on Saturday. That was an 0-3 scoreline. So maybe that undefeated streak that we saw is surprising Evil Geniuses, maybe not as strong as we once thought. Championship bracket, they would lose to Splice at a same scoreline of 0-3, and then they would eventually lose the Lightning Pandas after they had beat Reciprocity the round before. The Lightning Pandas 0-3 championship bracket later that time. Here's the thing about this team. I was unsure about them going into Vegas. I kind of ate my words on Friday, and then they started to really actually be the team that everyone thought they would be. Now, as we go into another LAN environment, you have to wonder, will that magic be there again? If you take a look back to what happened in the previous Checkmate Gamings, it doesn't look so great. Back in December, they finished only top 12. Back just a couple weeks ago, they finished top 8. And then this one that's happening as we're speaking right now, again, top 8 with some pretty significant losses. A long game versus the Pittsburgh Knights that they would end up losing. And then they would actually lose to Envy in the most recent one. The one before that, they would lose to Illy's team, and then also be beat up by OpTic Gaming. And then the one where they finished only top 12 back in December, they would lose to 100 Thieves in the losers bracket, and that was after they again lost to Illy's team in the winners bracket. So this team is really inconsistent. It seems like they're sitting in the middle of the pack. It's just that Friday that we go back to at Vegas, you got to think that they're going to pull out some kind of LAN magic. Regardless, this is a weak bracket, a weak pool. They should do well. My confidence of them qualifying will be up at 80% because of it. Normally it would be lower, but there's probably a pretty strong chance this team finishes the top 2. If they do not make it into the top 2 of this pool, my certainty goes a lot further down because, again, once you start seeing these more solid teams, you would think that they're going to be going up against a little bit harder of a test. I don't know. It's just the way it is. Let's head back to the pool, though. Again, Red Reserve and UIU, even Mind Freak are probably the only 2 teams that, or 3 teams rather, that could really give them a run. I don't see Imperial, Movie Star Riders, or Nation of Power doing anything against this team, so we'll move on forward. Red Reserve, the European team now living in the United States, that consists of Joe, Rated, Zero, Scraps, and Vance. That is the same roster from Vegas as what was represented at the qualifiers. Top 12 finisher at CWL Vegas, and they had a very disappointing pool. Again, they were in the same pool as Evil Geniuses at Vegas, and they did not look good really whatsoever, as they would go 1-3. They lost to both Evil Geniuses as well as UIU in the pools after a full 5-game set. They would, however, again, another team in this pool, Mind Freak, they would beat them in the championship bracket at a 3-0. This is a team that, again, has played in one of, now 2 of, actually, as I'm looking back at the CMG from what's going on right now, 2 of the CMGs. The one last week, they actually did rather well. They 4-1 to 100 Thieves. They 4-2'd Splice. They went all the way to 7 with G2 before they would eventually lose again to eUnited in the losers bracket. Not finals, but semifinals. The 4th place matchup. So they're top 4 there. And then the one this week, they lose in 5 to Enigma 6 and then lose in 3 to Evil Geniuses. So it's just done, 2 and done. 2 games and done. A lot of things are up in the air. This team did not perform well on LAN. They started to warm up near Saturday, late at night, when they had to continue to play through that loser bracket, or the losers part of the championship bracket, as well as they came through on Sunday. This is just, I don't have a lot of faith in this team. That's what it comes down to, flat out. I mean, in that losers bracket run that they had, they would beat Mindfreak and they would beat the Pittsburgh Knights before they would eventually lose on Sunday, I believe it was, to Straight Rippin' at a 3-1 scoreline. So those wins all look rather good. But you take a look back to what happened in the pool play days, and you have to think this team's not looking so great. Again, fortunately for Red Reserve, they're in a very weak pool, so I have their qualifying chances up to 70%. Again, kind of a similar storyline between what's happening with Evil Geniuses. It should be close between them and UIU and Mindfreak, as well as with Evil Geniuses, but all the other teams should be W's. So it really comes down to, can they win these games in the top 4 of what would likely be Pool D. Speaking of, let's head down to UIU. This was a team that was very surprising, as they were a top 16 finisher at CWL Vegas. Nova, though, would be dropped for Gorgonite, who was from Regal Reserve. That team no longer existing. So Spoof, Skies, Proto, Mayhem, and Gorgonite will be the roster represented at the Pro League Qualifiers. Top 16 after making it through the play-in bracket, which was, again, pretty impressive. And we aren't sure what to expect from this team. They had previously done well in the 2Ks. We weren't sure what they were going to look like, though. Of course, on LAN, they would lose in pools to Evil Geniuses 1-3, but they would win against Red Reserve in a full 5-game set in pool. So you look back at this UIU squad, it finished 2-2 overall. The other loss was to Velocity 0-3, and then their run through the bracket, as far as Champs bracket went, didn't go very far at all, as they would lose 3-1 to Team Envy. So a lot of things to consider when you take a look at UIU. This was also a team that in the December Pro Down did play. They would lose to Reciprocity, and then they would lose to Illy's team. And then beyond that, I believe they're playing this week as well. They did, and they would beat Envy 3-0 before losing to Teddy Rex's team 0-3. They would then beat Spacely's team 3-1, and they would lose to the Pittsburgh Knights 3-2. So a little bit of an up and up for this UIU team. It really just kind of comes down to if they show up on LAN. There were a couple of those games from the pools that were really, really close. They could have done more against some of the better teams, I think. But regardless, this is a solid team. I have them really close to possibly having the potential, and this is why my confidence is so high. They have the potential of breaking top 2 in Pool D. I honestly believe that. If they do not place top 2, though, the road becomes a little bit more egregious for them. I have them at a 66% chance at qualifying. Again, mostly that's so high because there is a very legitimate shot that they could just qualify off of the pool play. So we'll take a look to see what happens. As you take a look back at the pool again, it kind of, for me, comes down to, can they continue to find success against the lower teams? You cannot give up, if you're UIU, any games versus the Imperial, Movie Star Riders, or Nation of Power, and you have to, again, find a way to win. The top 4, this group is so segmented between the top 4 teams that are likely going to be there and the bottom 3. There's such a huge divide. There might be some conversation as we take a look over at Mindfreak for them maybe not being a top 4 squad. Hard to tell because of all the changes that have happened. Excite, which was playing at Vegas, would be dropped away for free agency. Buzzo would actually leave and move coaching role for Mindfreak. In exchange, Swifty would come over, as he was bought out, I believe, from Tainted Minds. I have to go back and apologize. I forgot in my Tainted Minds slide to put it that Swifty was going to Mindfreak. I just put him as going to free agency. That was my mistake. And then Beaston, who was actually part of Team Venom, kind of a mediocre 2K team. I just have it as a free agent listed because they don't really have a logo that I could find, at least. What difference is it? I hate to say it. So Shocks, Fighter, Luca, Beaston, and Swifty will make up the team. And again, Luca was that really kind of all-star performer that showed up very early in the pool plays on the main stream. Everyone was kind of saying, oh, this guy might be the future of Australian Call of Duty. We're not 100% sure if that's going to be the case because they did not look so great throughout the rest of the brackets. Finished top 20 at Vegas. Again, they were through the play-in bracket similarly to UIU. They did go 0-4 in Pool A, and they only won 3 maps. Not exactly what you'd like to see. They would also lose to Red Reserve in the championship bracket at an 0-3 scoreline. That play-in bracket specifically was a strange one, as again, they were in a weird spot. We had kind of expectations for them to go through. They played up against Straight Rippin', I believe, first, and then ended up winning the 2 games in the bracket side of things. So they did end up getting into the pools, and they did not show up nearly as well as I think the Australian scene wanted them to. Did them to, I guess you could say. And again, that red reserve loss was not great. They did beat FC Black 3-1 in the first round of the loser bracket. So something to do there. But again, as you take a look at this pool, I don't think they're top 2 material. Is there a chance of them potentially surprising and finishing top 2? Maybe. Could happen. Again, this is a very weak pool. If you're going to be in any pool and finish in top 2 as a mediocre middle of the road team, this is the one you want to be in. So there is a chance potentially for things to go crazy and things to happen. If teams aren't who we think they are and red reserve don't play well again, this is a wide open pool. My qualifying chance for this squad is at 40%. I think it's just simply riding on the small chance that if they could finish top 2 here, it would be great. I don't see this team making a very strong run through the bracket, though, if they were to get put in the playoff bracket. In my power rankings, I had them sitting around the 13th spot overall, so there is a chance. We just don't know is the biggest thing. We don't know about what this team and they have to offer. So let's go ahead and head on back, take a look once more at what the pool looks like, and then we'll head over, check out the Imperial. Again, this is the EU team that I actually had as one of my dark horses moving in to potentially be an open team to watch out for. They did, again, not play well in the play-in bracket at all. They were in the play-in bracket, didn't go well. The team made up of Moose, Denza, Vortex, Hawk, and Reedy. They would lose to Mind Freak. They lost to Accelerate. They lost to G2. All of them pretty convincing. This was not a team that I thought would do as poorly as they did. And God bless them for being in the play-in bracket, because they got one of the top 4 seeds going into the open bracket, which is the only reason that they made the top 24. They made it into the chance bracket because they didn't have to play so much, I personally think, in the open bracket. I honestly think there were open bracket teams that were better than this. So as you take a look at it, all of those losses, all in convincing fashion. This is a team that likely finishes maybe in the 5th spot, if not in the bottom 2 for elimination. It just comes down to what the other 2 behind them do. My qualifying chance for this just at 20%. We'll throw them a nickel just in case they show up and there's some vast improvement, but I don't like the odds really whatsoever. It's pretty stacked against them. I don't see them having the same kind of a storyline that Mind Freak does, where we don't know what's going on with that team. Will that addition of Buzzo to coach really make them stronger? Will Imperial just have the same kind of lackluster performance? We don't really know. Again, I don't see them finishing top 2 here. It would take a miracle to do it. It would probably take a miracle for them to get through the playoff bracket as well, but playoff bracket will be a little bit more forgiving, I think, after they get warmed up. Let's take a look over to our Spanish squad of the Movistar Riders. They also had a switch coming off of Vegas. Palooka would be taken off the roster. Katru will be brought into the roster. So Puni, Sammy, Supras, Oni or Wani, whatever you pronounce, I always pronounce it Oni, and Katru will make up this roster. And this is a top 28 finisher from Vegas, which was actually kind of surprising. They did lose pretty early on in the open bracket to Team Teddy, that was formerly Mazer Gaming. 1-2 was the map total there, and then they would win against Nation of Power, who was also in 1. But again, looking back at what this team was up against, it was a long run. They had to beat Team War, Team Vertex. They eventually beat Nation of Power, and then they would lose to FC Black, not quite able to make it into Championship Sunday. That was a 3-1 loss for them. This is a team, again, that if you pay attention to the EU 2Ks, they're usually up there in the top 8. They're a consistent performer. They've gotten their feet wet with some land gameplay, but it really, for me, it just doesn't look good. I still think this team probably finishes bottom 2. My chance of them qualifying is at 15%. I give them a slight deterrent from Imperial because I don't know how close they are. It very well could be the Imperial in the bottom 2 and ours. Movistar Riders in the 5th spot. Who knows? It just comes down to whoever shows up, who performs, and what happens past there. Our last team, Nation of Power, had a number of swaps from Vegas. J-Timp and Rampy would be leaving to go to a team that's apparently called Final Feature. Have not seen anything of them yet. Robbie B from Team War and Zinx from the Orlando Reapers would join into this roster after Vegas. This was a top 32 finisher. They had another, again, just kind of like Movistar Riders, they had actually an earlier drop to the open losers bracket against a kind of a no-name team. They would then make a pretty significant run through the lower bracket. They would beat Idomina, which was the Italian qualifier, Monaco Esport, Nemesis, and then they would eventually lose to Movistar Riders 1-2. A qualifying chance, though, for this team is low. I think this is probably the worst team in the pool. I give them maybe 5% chance. Not good. Not what you want to see. But that's going to wrap up Pool D. Again, if you're interested in more of these type of videos, please make sure you subscribe on over to get the notifications, ring the little bell when things go live. We'll also be doing viewing parties throughout the Pro League qualifiers. If you want to join in on those, make sure you join my Discord. That's in the description below. And beyond that, feel free to follow me on Twitter. We did a really fun little broadcast with the community, the COD competitive community on Reddit. If you joined in, I want to say thank you for there. But I want to wrap this up pretty quick for you. It was a long video. We've got Pro League qualifiers to go into. Let me know in the comments below you've got coming out of Pool D and who you might have just completely being eliminated after the first couple of days of play. We'll see you next week for Pro League qualifiers. Between now and then, I would like to do at least a couple more videos, so I'm not sure what on yet. We'll figure it out. If you've got things you want to know about, feel free to leave them down in the comments as well, and we'll try to get something out for you to kind of help build that community around us, all right? All right, until next time, keep holding it down. Until then, later. Bye-bye.